Am I the a-hole for refusing to be a bridesmaid in my sister's wedding? I, 24 female, have a sister, 28 female, Lexi. Me and Lexi used to be really close, and she was basically my best friend. However, around 7 or 8 months ago, I found out my boyfriend Jonah was cheating on me with her, and now they're getting married in August. We hadn't talked since then, until she called me the other day asking me if I would be one of her bridesmaids. This angered me, and I told her that I didn't want to do that, and she was messed up for even asking that. She said that it would mean a lot to her since I'm her only sister. She also told me that she had already bought the dress, so said I would be letting her down then and wasting the money she spent on the dress. I said that just because she bought me a dress doesn't mean I have to be in her wedding. She started crying and telling me how I was being insensitive and holding a grudge against her. I tried to tell her that I was sorry, but she didn't listen and hung up. Now, yesterday my parents invited me over for dinner. But what I didn't know is that Lexi had called them, told them what I said. So halfway through dinner, my mom out of nowhere says that I should be Lexi's bridesmaid. I told her I really didn't want to. She then said that Lexi told her what happened and that I shouldn't care about Jonah and just do it for Lexi. I said I was not going to be in a wedding with my cheating ex-boyfriend and watch him marry my sister. My dad got angry and called me selfish and kicked me out of their house. My parents haven't spoken to me and neither has Lexi. Now, I feel like a witch, but I also feel like I deserve to feel angry. I'm just so conflicted on what to do. Am I wrong for saying no? Now, for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but your whole family sucks. $10 say Lexi is pregnant. Not the a-hole, but everyone else is. I'd personally consider it a win that none of these a-holes are speaking to you. Live your life without their BS and be happy. Oh yeah, OP, they're doing you a favor. Don't refuse this gift of no contact. They want you to feel rejected and wrong, like their attention is some kind of privilege. But it isn't. If this is what it costs to be in their lives, you are far better off without them. Enjoy some quiet drama-free time without them. And if they contact you, remind them that your position still stands and you accept their punishment of not talking to you. Maybe go so far as to say, "You're right, I wouldn't talk to me either. I definitely don't deserve your time or attention. No, you were right. It's best that you teach me a lesson." Not the a-hole. Tell me who's the golden child without telling me who's the golden child. Honestly, yeah, she's always been the favorite. And when he cheats on her, you'll be the only one not surprised. And when he tries to talk to you again, no one will believe you. These people are not your family. Get rid of them. They don't love you, and I'm sorry. Not the a-hole, of course. Not the a-hole. Do your parents really think it's about the cheating boyfriend and not being betrayed by your own sister who was your best friend? Lexi made her choice when she hopped into bed with your boyfriend. She doesn't get to be the victim here. For your own healing, please don't attend this wedding just to make someone who clearly does not care about you feel better. Adding that I would be patty AF and send her a congratulations card signed, "You lose them how you find them. Good luck." Next story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for humiliating my wife on social media to defend my mom?" We finally have gone no contact with my mom. It was a long, hard decision, but she and my wife are just fundamentally unable to get along and recently had a vicious fight, and I knew I had to put my wife first. This fight was so bad my mom didn't even protest the no contact. We're just done with each other, but I can't say it hasn't been gut-wrenching. My mom has given her version of the story to everyone, so I get that my wife wants to defend herself. But I hate that she's posting on social media because I find that tacky. And my mom just told people verbally. Anyway, my wife made a couple posts about my mom's behavior over the years, which, hey, they were true. But then she claimed my mom wore white to our wedding when she didn't, and she even posted a picture to prove it. This picture is not from our wedding. It is from my mom's own wedding, and my wife labeled it the mother-son dance. I was mortified. I don't even care about the white dress, but the man my mom was with was her husband, not me. Face was cropped out, and I felt humiliated. He was holding her very intimately, hand on her lower back, her head buried in his chest. My mom and I would never ever touch like that, and it made me feel sick. Heck, my mom was stiff during the actual mother-son dance. I know some families are more affectionate, but I would just never do that. I asked my wife to take it down and she refused. I took it into my own hands and comments. "Honey, think you are confused. That's stepdad, remember? That was their wedding." She actually wore green to ours and posted the pictures for proof. My wife was furious and deeply hurt. She broke down crying and said I publicly humiliated her and sided with my mom. She said she just wanted a little bit of petty revenge, but I should have taken her side. It's been a day and she's still clearly upset. Not the a-hole. She publicly humiliated herself by acting like a petty teen engaged in a social media smear campaign. This 100%. That's high school BS. Super freaking gross. Airing dirty laundry on social media already sucks. This is another level, and would leave a bad taste in my mouth for a while regardless of current standing with a mother. Not the a-hole. She didn't air dirty laundry. She took needle and thread to create it, dirty it, and say it was someone else. Not the a-hole. Your wife is immature for doing that. Why would you post such a thing, not considering your feelings about it, much less your mother's, even if you guys are at odds with her? She deserved being called out. Next time, she'll be mindful of what she posts. Wife sounds like a drama queen. I know the sub is just no mother-in-law, but honestly, a lot of the posts there you can tell the daughter-in-law is equally as toxic, if not more. These sons have okay relationships with their families and then their wives nuke things and demand pick me. All just seems like such a petty squabble for power with the mother-in-laws. Embarrassing to be old enough to think you should get married and acting this way in social media. Not the a-hole. I hope you went no contact with your mom based on behavior that you have witnessed yourself, because your wife clearly doesn't mind lying and manipulating. Exactly. It makes me wonder if his wife has lied before about things in order to get petty revenge. There is no way that out of the entire social media rant, the wife just decided to sprinkle in one obvious lie. I hope he simply just caught that lie because it was a photo. If anything, the only reason the wife didn't think twice about posting an easily disprovable photo is because her version of reality is super twisted. I am willing to bet a lot of money that other things Opie thinks are true are not actually true. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my husband selfish and saying no to the arrangements he made? I, female 33, have been married to my husband, male 38, for 2 years. He has a 9-year-old son from his former marriage. He's always been on bad terms with his ex. They had a messy divorce and basically hate each other's guts. It got worse after his ex got remarried. The current problem started when he found out that his ex-wife planned to go on vacation without their son, my stepson. Why? Because her new husband didn't want him to go, probably because it's a romantic getaway. My husband pitched a fit and insisted they take my stepson, but she refused. My husband then brought him to stay with us. Not his days, but I welcomed him and I made sure to keep him entertained and happy. All was good, till I found out that my husband has booked tickets for a vacation to this same place his ex and her new husband were going. Same hotel, same everything. He booked the tickets in mine and his son's name only. I was confused. I asked him about it and he said he did this to spite his ex and show her she can't exclude his son from a vacation and who the better parent is. He told me he's arranged for everything and all I had to do was take time off work and take his son and go. I was shocked. I asked if he was serious and he confirmed it. I went off on him saying I can't just take time off work and go with his son to a place I've never been before, just so he could one-up his ex. He ranted about how busy he was. Otherwise, he would have taken care of this himself, but sent me instead. I yelled, saying I've got a lot on my plate. I work full-time. I take care of my cancer-stricken mom. I clean, cook, and take care of my stepson on top of that. But he said my boss will understand if I take time off, unlike his. But in response, I called him selfish and said no to this arrangement and told him it was final. He flipped his lid on me, then told his son that I just said no to a fun vacation for him funded by his dad. I told him to stop it, because I have commitments and won't risk losing my job over an unexpected vacation. And for what? We just got back from one a month ago. He's been ranting about how I'm wasting his time and money by declining to go, and that his son will hate me for this forever. Not the a-hole. You are married to a man who hasn't got over his wife/ex, and is willing to hurt his son for some toxic payback. Red flags. This will not end well. Run. Usually, I roll my eyes when Reddit jumps on the dump them ASAP train. But this is red flag upon red flag. Hope he needs to get out while she still can. Feel terrible for the kid though. Hopefully his bio mom is a better parent and gets sole custody one day. I agree. And maybe get a hold of the bio mom so she can be aware of what goes on over there, and that their son may/is used as a pawn. Poor kid. Not the a-hole. But hun, he's either still in love with his ex and jealous that she's moved on, or he's got some serious power and control issues that you need to be aware of. If he's acting like this about her, it doesn't bode well for you. One-upping another can be fun, but not if it is done out of hate and throws away a lot of money and time and effort. Not the a-hole and the divorce made/makes sense. Not the a-hole. He's trying to use you and his son in his sick game of revenge. If it is so important to mess with his ex in this way, then he should take his son himself, not try to bully you into doing it. It's totally and completely inappropriate and unhealthy. And frankly, he is being emotionally and psychologically abusive to you. Do you see that? There's so much bigger issue here. Not the a-hole. He really needs to see a counselor to work through this. It's poisoning his whole life. Was this trip his ex is going on planned around a time when you would have a son? People do go on trips without their kids, but that's beside the point. A lot of abusers just get better at manipulation and control after starting therapy because they start to hide it with terms the counselor uses. Until dude realizes people in his life are not pawns for him to control, but humans who have needs outside of serving him, he won't change. It's not about communication or anger issues. This is about control and thinking others join his life so he can control what they do and who they are. Therapy works for a lot of people, but this dude is controlling AF, so I'm thinking he has passed the point of help until his whole philosophy/ideology about relationships with humans changes in a big way. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to grieve with my wife after my aunt's passing? I, 35 male, am married to a woman named Jess, 26 female. We dated for 2 years before marriage and have been married for 1 year now. Most of my family has passed away, but I have, or rather had, one aunt from my mother's side. My Aunt Jill took an active role in raising me, making sure I was fed and clothed when my mother was unable or unwilling, which was often. We kept in touch, but living across the country from her, she and Jess never met. Yesterday morning, I got the news that my Aunt Jill had suddenly passed away. I was in shock because she was still young, and her life was taken prematurely in an accident. I immediately told Jess. Jess was sympathetic at first, but I told her that I needed a while to be in my room. I went to my room, where I kind of just mindlessly spaced out browsing through a news site. At some point, Jess knocked on my door and told me that I needed to talk about it, to which I responded I appreciated the sentiment, but I really just needed to be alone. Jess reacted harshly to this, saying I was an emotional black hole. Then she slammed my door shut and literally stomped away. For the next 2 hours, every 10 to 15 minutes or so, Jess would open my door abruptly and half shout asking if I was ready to be an adult. I grew increasingly impatient until I just stood up and went out for a walk. When I got back home about an hour later, the chain was locked on our front door, which we never use, and I repeatedly knocked/pushed the doorbell until Jess said that she'd only let me in if I agreed to talk about what happened. I said no, so Jess walked away. Eventually, she unlocked it because I kept pounding on the door and she didn't want me embarrassing her in front of the neighbors. Jess is furious at me now, saying that I'm not really grieving because I'm online. She said that I needed to let her in on my feelings, but I responded that it's hard to let her in on my feelings when she just refused to let me into our house. That set her off even more. Am I being a mega a-hole here? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but your wife certainly is. There is no right or wrong way to grieve, and by pushing you into grieving her proper way, she's actually making it harder to you to process your aunt's death. She needs to apologize to you and back the heck off. Yep, she is showing both insecurity and immaturity. You cannot project on others how you would feel or mourn, or deal with deep emotions. Some people cry and need a shoulder. Some people need quiet, alone time. Some people need to back away from it and approach it in a teeny tiny bites when it feels safe for them. Opie's wife is making it about her, and it's not. Immaturity. Exactly. She's the one being immature, not Opie. Opie's definitely the a-hole in this situation. You can grieve any way you want, and I'm sorry for your loss. Soft the a-hole for being a 32-year-old who was dating a 23-year-old and is now complaining about how immature she is. Not the a-hole. Jess needs to back the heck off. She doesn't get to tell you how to grieve, and you don't have to perform your grief for her in a way that she finds satisfactory. Her locking you out is a solid a-hole move, as it's not giving you space to process how you're feeling. I want to repeat, She needs to back off. Grief is so very different for people. Not one human has the right to determine how you process it. My husband's father passed last year. They were very, very close. But my husband has a lot of mixed emotions since he was also a Nehalfi father. My husband didn't cry. He was down for a bit. I asked once if he wanted to talk. He said nope, not what he wants to do. And then I let it go. Of course, if he started showing some unhealthy behaviors, I would have tried to help out. But to someone on the outside, they never would have known he lost a parent. And that's okay. And he's okay, and this is consistently how he processes pain. Let people heal in their own way, damn it. Not stay home. Different people grieve in different ways. If your behaviors were going on for more than a week, you should be justified in being concerned about your withdrawing from the world rather than tackling the grief. But on the same day you got the news? Not cool. And then locking you out of your own home? That's over the top. This is a very troubling reaction from her. Am I the a-hole for leaving the restaurant before my boyfriend's family arrived after I was told that I was going to pay for their meals? I, female 29, have been dating my boyfriend, male 35, Ricky, for 5 months. He's divorced but hates this word and goes with the word divorcee instead, since the first one makes it sound like he was dumped when it was him who initiated it. Anyways, he always go on long rants about his exes and say stuff like, I hope you don't have this awful habit my ex has, or hope you like XYZ cause my ex didn't, and the list goes on. I found a second job recently and has been having me pay every time we go out. When I protest, he'd say he's going through a rough patch and is seeing how much help I can offer. Last night he invited his family to join us for dinner. We got to the restaurant first and he asked me if I brought enough money. I said why, and he told me that he told his parents that I'd pay for their meals. I said, why would I? And went on about his parents going through a rough patch just like him. I said, I'm sorry, this can't be a coincidence. He asked what I meant and I just told him that I would not be paying. He insisted, but I refused and said no. He then leaned back and said, well, you're here, so not much of a choice you have anyway, while laughing like it was funny. I silently got up, took my phone and purse and walked right out. He was shocked. He started shouting after me to stop and wait, but I didn't. I went home and he called me enraged, saying that I did a horrible thing walking out on him at his parents, while I could have just paid. I told him that their unfortunate financial situation isn't my problem, and that I wasn't obligated to pay for their food. If they couldn't pay for their meals, then they should not go out. He got offended and said, and I quote, you're making money priority just like my ex did. Then went on about how disrespectful my attitude was, and how I made him look small in front of his parents and forced him to lie about why I wasn't there when they came. We've been going back and forth about it till now. He's mad and is refusing to speak to me till I apologize. Am I the a-hole? I feel bad because his parents are lovely and I've been doing my best to keep a good relationship with them. Now for the top comments. Oh my god, girl. Run. This is not a man you want or need in your life. Go, 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 and don't look back. Like ever. Not the a-hole by a long shot. This cannot be repeated too many times. Yep, this man didn't initiate the divorce. He was dumped. He's clearly not over his ex. You deserve better, not being the new love that drives out old love. That's BS, especially when the other person doesn't have anything to offer and is only taking advantage of you emotionally and financially. I think it's a safe bet he doesn't even have a job, which is why she got a second one. And dude's ex was also tired of his BS. Anyone who feels the need to stress that they were totally the one to leave their ex-partner, and not the reverse, is clearly lying about the situation. OP, girl, run far and run fast. He's a leech and this will not get better. Divorcee versus divorced, red flag. Ranting about his ex on repeat, red flag. Expecting you to pay for everything, red flag. Seeing how much help I can offer, red flag. Expecting you to pay for his parents and not warning you ahead of time, red flag. Comparing you to an ex because you don't want to pay for his family, red flag. This dude is full of red flags. It's time to run. Not stay whole. This feels like one of those, where if Opie just read what she wrote, she wouldn't need the sub. Like, do you not see what you're saying here? Not the a-hole. Oh, the audacity is strong with this one. And the red flags are waving. Girl, just leave him. If he expected you to pay for him at his parents once, chances are he'll do it again. Like you said, their financial issues aren't your problem. He said it was temporary, but I don't know. His parents are nice people. They treat me better than my own family. They're using you. That's not treating you well. Treat yourself better by moving on from them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for angrily telling my friend that he was not the victim in his relationship? I'm 28 male, have a friend, Bill, 29 male. We are part of a whole group, have been friends for at least 10 years, and some of the demanded women have even ended up marrying each other. Point is, we have all known each other for a very long time. Now, Bill has always displayed narcissistic personality traits, especially in his past relationships. He's a very condescending person and thinks that he's better than everyone else because he has a well-paying job, owns his own house/car, all of that. In comparison, some of the other guys still live with family and such. In his mind, they haven't grown up and he's better than them. It's usually easy to ignore because he's very charismatic and brings in new people to the group. In past relationships, he has been really awful, like giving girlfriends a checklist of stuff they need to change to be with him, commenting on their appearance, etc. But because a lot of this was years ago, I think most of us hoped he'd grow out of it. He always describes all of his exes as crazy, and we usually believed him. Some we could confirm are crazy because we met them, and with the ones we didn't meet, we just believed his stories. Enter his new girlfriend, Sarah, 33, female. They started dating in July 2021. We all got to know her, and she's awesome. She's very down-to-earth and friendly. She has basically become friends with everyone. Well, Bill asked Sarah to move in with him at the end of April 2022, and she did, since she saw the relationship getting more serious. Then, at the end of June 2022, Bill randomly broke up with her. When asked what happened, he says that he just hated that his house no longer felt like his house because of all of her stuff, which everyone thinks is ridiculous. Well, unfortunately, with the housing and rental markets being what it is right now, Sarah had trouble finding a place to move that would meet her needs. She found one place that she took, but a place isn't available until September 30, so she had to stay living with Bill. I know from talking with both of them that Sarah wanted to be as mature and friendly about the whole thing as possible, but Bill has done nothing but be as antagonistic as possible. He's done stupid stuff, like blaring the TV when he knows she's trying to sleep, and he's also done really cruel things, like calling up a booty call, putting her on speakerphone, and talking to her about when they could hook up when he knew Sarah could hear it. Anyway, the guys were all hanging out and Bill kept complaining, trying to sound like the victim in the situation. And I finally said, stop trying to play the victim. No one here thinks you're the victim in this. Actually, if you could have been mature about the breakup, then there wouldn't be any victims. This would have just been a relationship that hadn't worked out. But you made Sarah the victim by all of your actions. So just stop complaining and get over it. Everyone else agreed with me, but Bill got angry and left. Am I the a-hole for how I handled it? Not the a-hole, and from every ex-girlfriend of a narcissistic a-hole? Thank you. Seriously, why are you friends with such a tool though? I know it sounds bad, but a lot of the guys in our group are very introverted and hate talking to new people. He's one of the few who brings in new people. I think that's why we keep him around. He brings in new victims of his abuse. Why do you need a constant influx of friends? Most of us are happy with a handful in adulthood. That's right on the nose. My ex-best friend would cycle through friends like you wouldn't believe. She'd get 2 to 3 new ones at a time, and suddenly they all had this or that issue. When I broke my friendship off with her, it was because I realized these friends were cycling out so fast, because she was emotionally mistreating them and using me as a shield, because I was blinded by my love for her. 14 years, we went through abusive homes together, and she's very much why I lived through some stuff I did. That she could run to me and say, "Oh, they did this to me," and I defend her every single time. I felt awful when I realized it helped her exclude multiple people for no reason at all. She doesn't have any friends now. Not the a-hole, but I'm wondering why you're still friends with Bill. Based solely upon what you've written, he seems to have few redeeming qualities. I completely understand what you're saying. I guess it's because we live in a smaller town. We've all been here our whole lives, for the most part, and it's just always been easier to ignore it. Up until now anyway. Bill might actually have a point about some cases of arrested development in your friend group. You're acting like a bunch of easily led teenagers hanging around one popular kid who tolerates you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for how I reacted when my boyfriend tried to pull me on stage for a hypnotism show? I'd gone to Vegas with a few friends, my boyfriend and my boyfriend's brother. We ended up going to a hypnotism show after having gone out for drinks. The drinks were hitting me pretty hard when I walked in and I was having a great time until the part where they call people up on stage. And they picked me. I was feeling pretty drunk and not wanting to do it, so I shook my head no. But then my boyfriend grabbed me and tried to pull me up to the stage. I tried to resist being pulled along, but he was really yanking me up there. We'd gotten the attention of the rest of the audience and they were all cheering for him to pull me up there. And I was kinda angry because first, I was feeling a little too drunk and nauseous. And second, because if my boyfriend had not wanted to do something, I'd respect that. I've often even been the bad guy for saying no to things for him, so he wouldn't have to because of social anxiety. So, I was angry that he didn't respect it the other way around. So when he tried to pull me up the stairs to the stage, I just went completely limp. 170 pounds of dead weight collapsing onto the bottom stair. I also started laughing at the whole situation, because remember, drunk. He tried to lift me up and I went full noodly. And then his brother joined in and they both managed to lift me up, but couldn't keep a hold of me, so I just kept sliding on the ground. The crowd was laughing, but more the guys now. Some people were joking about how the guys couldn't even lift a girl together. Someone in the crowd yelled out to ask if I was okay, and I yelled back, "No, I think I've just suddenly found myself single. Wasn't expecting that tonight." The hypnotist cracked a few jokes about how Vegas is the best place to find yourself suddenly single, then said that he couldn't hypnotize someone who was obviously not open to persuasion of any sort. I felt kinda bad for disrupting the show, though maybe wasn't bothered as it was a comedy show after all. I grabbed my friends and headed out, telling my boyfriend not to follow me. They took me back to their hotel room and told me to sleep it off, figuring I hadn't meant what I'd said about a breakup. But in the morning, my now ex-boyfriend came by wanting to talk, and I stood by what I said, that it was over. I was angry. I'd always been sensitive to his needs, even letting him cast me as the bad guy to get out of plans he didn't want to do. But he saw my consent as a joke? I was over it. He was furious, saying I was being rash, that I had humiliated him by dumping him in front of a crowd, and he didn't even get it. How if I didn't want a scene but made a bigger scene? It didn't feel like I was being rash. I want a partner who doesn't think it's funny to hear my no and ignore it. Not just ignore it, but think it's funny to push me to do the things I said no to anyway. Am I the a-hole for how I reacted when my boyfriend tried to pull me on stage for a hypnotism show? Now for the comments. So not the a-hole. I used to do a bit of stage hypnotism for fun, and first off, any good stage hypnotist tries very hard to screen for drunk people. They are unpredictable and should not be on stage. I am shocked you didn't stop your boyfriend on those grounds alone. Second, most people can't be hypnotized unless they are willing to be, and the others require some special tactics that are unethical to hypnotize in the first place. You'd have been a lousy subject. The people on stage should be having the most fun. Third, and most importantly, you did not want to go up. For that reason alone, anybody who tried to make you is a total a-hole. Honestly, I am just impressed that you handled it with such humor. I would have been fuming and likely yelling. Also, poor job on the part of a stage hypnotist to allow that situation to happen. I don't know much about stage hypnotism, but if inducing an altered state of consciousness is really what happens, then it's absolutely a horrible idea to invite drunk people to take part in the show. It's also bad to do it with people on meds, or people living with mental illnesses who are already having a hard time telling reality and imagination apart like schizophrenics. When it comes to hypnotism, meditation, etc., this is rule number 1. It's right up there with consent. I don't know what folks in Vegas are doing. This all sounds way too crazy. You were right. The stage hypnotist should have done a better job and not allowed all this to happen, only because the audience was having fun at OP's expense. When I was big into meditation, I went to one. It was very small. When I was on stage, I just kind of slipped into my regular meditation mindset. I don't remember much except trying to tell the guy I wanted out and the assistant whispering, "Shake it off," behind me. Oh, and also him lifting my head and saying, "She's really out." I did not like it. It in fact ruined meditation for me for a long time, and even now I can't click into it like I used to be able to do. Not the a-hole at all. Ew. Him and his brother are creeps. I'm glad they got humiliated. Yeah, how do they think they're not a-holes? Hint, if you find yourself physically dragging an unwilling person around, you should probably reassess what you're doing. Obviously, exception if they're a danger to themselves in that moment. Now, for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my family my wife puts our son to bed early so she doesn't have to deal with his behavior? My son is 4 and has been placed in a special needs school. He is being tested for autism in January, and we have had this appointment for well over a year. My wife had him evaluated by the school, and he had a 75% delay, so they went ahead and let him enroll in the school without a formal diagnosis. It can be quite challenging at times. I work 12-hour days and my wife is a stay-at-home mom. She takes him to the school an hour away, then picks him up in the afternoon. We have a 2-year-old and a newborn as well. I leave at 4 a.m. and she leaves around 7 a.m. I get home around 6 p.m. every day. Since my son has been in school, she puts him to bed at 7 p.m., which is super early. My family came over for dinner at 6 p.m. And by 6:30, she was taking him upstairs for bath and left the babies downstairs to be held by my mother and father. By 7 p.m., she was putting him in bed. I asked her if he could stay up until 9 p.m. so he could interact with my family as they don't come very often. She immediately said no, and that he gets bad notes from school when he stays up too late, and that he is very difficult in the morning when he is overtired. So I told my family that he couldn't stay up and had to go to bed because she couldn't deal with his behavior. After they left, she told me I was a huge a-hole, and that she puts him to bed for his own good and not doing it for herself. She then called me selfish. My mother-in-law has also texted me telling me that I need to help her daughter more and that I should not embarrass her in front of my family that way. I called my mother and she agreed that 7 p.m. was extremely early and an extra 2 hours would not have hurt him at all. Am I the a-hole? Wow, so you think that your wife is lying about the school employees sending notes about your son acting up more when he's tired? Your wife can't handle your son's behavior. It's appropriate to trash talk your wife's parenting to your own parents. That your mom is more knowledgeable than both school personnel. Whoops, forgot, that was a lie. And your own wife, the mother of the child in question who knows him best and has raised him for 4 years. And that you should include your mom in an argument between you and your wife after you humiliated your wife by bad-mouthing her. I'm sure you're providing the family with a great income, but other than that, you seem to be a source of ugliness, negativity, and pain for them. I hope this isn't your normal behavior because you're the a-hole 100%. It also is lack of support for his wife. Since she appears to be doing all of the raising, he doesn't appear to know the first thing about his child. As evidenced by not knowing the kid needs more sleep to make it through the day, he wants to keep her knocked up while he does very little. He doesn't appear to know the first thing about his child, or any child for that matter. 7 p.m. is a perfectly reasonable bedtime for a 4-year-old. They need about 11 hours of sleep at that age. It's a very developmentally normal thing for him to be going to bed at a time. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to spend my lottery winning on a new car for my boyfriend? Recently, I, female 26, have won quite a lot of money in lottery. It's not the main prize, but it was one of the top 3, and it's a life-changing amount in my country. I grew up poor, very poor. And while I worked my way up, my closest family is still struggling. I help, but I cannot fix everything. At least I couldn't before. My winnings were recently deposited to my bank account, completely separate one to my normal one, and I'm not touching that money until I have my meeting with my financial advisors that I hired. My plan is to use small amounts of money to enjoy, use part to improve my family's life, like buying them flats that they can later on afford to upkeep but in safer place and of better quality, and invest the vast majority in different ventures to ensure a stream of revenue for years to come so I can live comfortably and help my family. The only people that know are my closest family and my boyfriend, Andy, male 30. We've been together for 7 months, but we don't live together. Andy has different plans though. He basically came up with a list of items he needs and have been pressuring me into getting them before I even speak to my advisors. Basically, he wants a new car. Stereotypically, he wants something like a Tesla, which he absolutely doesn't need. He wants us to move in together and for me to buy a house with a pool. He's now starting talking about kids, that we can afford them blah blah even though he knows that I am child-free. I've been refusing every single request, telling him that necessities come first and that money is under lock and key until I speak with my financial advisors. He's not very happy about this. He's been calling me a Scrooge, telling him I don't love him anymore, and calling me a cheapskate. Worst of all, he now told every one of our friends about this. And they've started pressuring me as well, asking me to fund nights out, etc. And they've been very cruel when I refuse, a-hole being almost a compliment. I'm devastated. Am I really an a-hole in this situation? Am I the a-hole for not wanting to spend frivolously? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Ditch the boyfriend ASAP. Don't buy him a pack of gum, let alone anything else. He's trying to manipulate you with guilt with "if you love me" and by telling mutual friends about your money. I'm so happy for you, using your money so well. Also, be careful with birth control. Sounds like he's trying to baby trap you. I mean, God, why would you even sleep with someone who is trying to bully you like this? Don't even worry about the birth control. Just completely stay physically away from this guy. Not the a-hole. You are doing the smart thing with this windfall, as well as keeping it to yourself. It's amazing how many people act entitled and the gimmies come out. Your friends are being the a-hole. Your boyfriend is the a-hole. This man and your friends are showing their true colors. He shouldn't be pressuring you for anything. He just wants access to that money. P.S. Consider going no contact or low contact with these friends while you process all this. +1 on your boyfriend and friends being a-holes. Life-changing money can show you who are really the ones that are friends. Friends wouldn't be asking you for money like that and expecting you to give it up so quick. That kind of money, if used frivolously, goes quick. Don't be a pushover. And please drop the boyfriend. It's been less than a year and he's expecting you to buy a car for him? How does that make sense? Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Unfortunately, your boyfriend now sees you as an ATM, not a girlfriend. It's not you. A sudden influx of money shows people's true colors. He and your friends will not leave you alone about this either. They will suck you dry for the money and then dump you. I would dump him and block them, then move ASAP. You need new friends. I thought the exact same thing. Dump him, the friends, and move. I don't think I would feel safe with people knowing where I live. Next story. Am I the a-hole for pretending not to know my fiancé after she had a meltdown during boarding the plane and was eventually thrown off? I imagine I'm gonna get raked over the coals for this one. So, my fiancé, maybe not for much longer, and I were on our way back from a vacation recently. It was a great time, and everything went off without an issue. That is, until we started boarding the plane. Now I know better, so I only bring a small backpack with essentials in case I don't get my checked bags. I can survive out of this backpack, and it will always pass baggage check for size and weight. Done a lot of traveling, so why fight the system? My fiancé didn't want to listen to my advice though, and chose to bring basically a regular size bag that barely fits the standards of carry-on. But generally speaking, the airline worker doesn't want to deal with the trouble and allows it through. But this time, the airline worker was not having it. It was a packed flight. We were boarding last in economy, and it was just a crap show. I got through just fine first with my little backpack, but I could hear the argument from the boarding tunnel thingy, and it was getting heated. I was about to go back and try to smooth it out, but my fiancé rushed past and just boarded a plane. I assumed, not having heard it super clearly, that the attendant had given in and let her on. That was not a case. So, we found our seats and settled in. I was pretty tired, and I could tell she was upset, so I just kinda tucked into the window and put my hat down and tried to take a nap. But soon after, the airline worker and a cop shows up, and they're not messing around and want her off the plane. She tries to plead and cry, etc., but they're not having it. It may be in a moment of panic or just plain self-preservation. When a cop asked if we're together, I blurted out, "No," shaking my head emphatically. I got killed dagger eyes from her as she shut up and grabbed her bag and followed the cop out. She was also swearing and screaming the whole way out. Now, obviously, this is well after the event that I'm posting this, but when she did eventually get home after she caught the next flight out with the bag checked, lol, I was there to pick her up. She obviously thought I was the a-hole, and to be honest, almost everyone I know thinks I am, except my boss and co-workers. who for context were very much relying on me to be back on time, which I gave my word I would for a really important project that was time sensitive. They were all very happy I didn't get thrown off too. So am I the a-hole for this self-preservation? Not the a-hole. Get out while you still can. This is how she'll be forever. She'll never learn from this experience. Disagree. Nothing like the humiliation of a cop escorting you off a plane to learn that rules really are a thing. Loss of time, money, and public humiliation are very powerful teachers. And now Opie can reference this whenever she forgets her social decorum. Acting up in a restaurant? Jeez, I hope they don't escort you out of here like they did off that plane. But how is it possible an adult human needs that level of intervention? I have a hard time believing she'll reform. People like that just don't get humiliated. They get indignant and dig in on their wrong position harder. I couldn't deal. I'd be out. Honestly, I was ready to rake you over the coals. But now I'm thinking not the a-hole. This isn't like your fiancé had an anxiety attack over fear flying. It sounds to me like a full-on grown woman temper tantrum, which only happened because she didn't listen to your travel advice. To be fair, I don't travel light either, but I also don't try to put my giant luggage in the overhead bins. She did this to herself. I don't travel light either. I pay extra for luggage on flights. My significant other pokes fun at me about it with his backpack. But I say it's a luxury I choose to pay for. Next time he pokes fun, this story's coming out. Well, would you rather? Not the a-hole, and please seriously consider whether you want events like this to be a normal part of your life. Because someone who reacts like that when she knows she's in the wrong is not going to change. Although, if not for the work thing, and if you wanted to save the relationship, you probably should have gotten off with her. Not because she was any way in the right, but because she's going to hold this over your head and sulk for a very long time. I'll be honest, I wouldn't have even argued with the airline worker. I'm just not like that. I would have smiled and politely agreed to whatever they wanted. I hate conflicts that are unnecessary. Conflicts like that can get you blacklisted. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that either. Same for the police involvement. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not including my siblings' children in my will even though I'm child-free? I, female 39, have always had an almost non-existent relationship with my half-sister, female 59, and half-brother, male 57, in large due to our age gap, and that our father passed away when I was 2 years old. I grew up with my mother and always saw myself as a single child, even though my mother would talk about my siblings. Starting from when I was 14 years old, my siblings and I have made some attempts to create a relationship, but it has never worked. We are fundamentally different people. And if we didn't share a family connection, I would never have spent time with them. So we are low contact. I had a rocky start in my work life, having a degree I couldn't use. I got back to school for a new degree when I was 30. It worked out good, and I'm today working a high-paying job. For my days living on minimum wage and studying, I have learned to take care of my money. I was recently able to buy my own house, I don't have children, and no expensive hobbies. All this adds up to me being able to put money away each month, which is a big deal for me. A security. When my father passed away, we divided inheritance. So my mother, as they were married, got 50% and us children split the other half equally. My siblings didn't want any of the memorabilia my father collected. Little value but cool things, so I have them now. Anyway, the other day my sister calls me. I'm a little taken aback, but okay, I can live with awkward small talk for 20 minutes. Then out of the blue, she asks me if I have a will. I didn't think, but just blurt out yes. She then asks me if her and my brother's children are the beneficiaries. I'm honest and say no. I have met my brother's 2 girls once when I was about 20 years old. I have never even met my sister's children. She then starts to question who I will leave everything to. I say that father's memorabilia will go to an aviator museum. Some things will be given to close friends as they hold shared memories. The rest is to be sold, and together with my savings be split evenly between an organization helping people with alcohol and drug addiction and cancer research. My sister is livid, telling me that that is money that can make a big difference in my siblings' children's lives. Sure, but I don't feel obligated to provide that for them. If I wanted to leave my money to someone, it would be my boyfriend's son. I have seen him grow up and been like an aunt to him. Now my brother is calling too, and saying that I'm being cruel and that I am stealing both the past and the future from his children. So am I the a-hole for not including my siblings' children in my will? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You don't know your siblings' children. They don't know you. You aren't particularly close to your siblings and never have been. It's entitled to the point of being absolutely tacky that they think they can shake you down for money on the basis of shared DNA, which never meant anything to them during your formative years and doesn't mean much now. Not the a-hole. You barely have contact with your sister, and she calls you out of the blue to ask if you have a will? Also, you're only 39. Something sounds fishy, like she wants something. Keep your guard up. 100%. Sounds like someone is banking on OP's money. Not the a-hole. They are 20 years older than you. Why would they expect you to pass earlier than their kids? They had no problem taking their portion of the estate, and you were a minor. So ask them if you should assume they stole from you because you didn't get to grow up with as much financial security with 2 working parents like they did. And how can you steal money that belongs to you? Being child-free is being the rich aunt/uncle's heirs. Last story. Am I the a-hole for feeling entitled to food I did not technically pay for? I, 34 male, recently went to a get-together with some friends of mine. I get along with most everyone within the group, outside of one person who we will call Mike. Mike is someone who I feel is selfish and can be a bully, and I feel it has gotten worse recently. However, we have all been friends since high school, so I put up with it. Well, Mike decides he wants to have everyone over to play some Settlers of Catan. We used to get together a lot more to play board games or Smash Bros or whatnot, but as we all have gotten older, that obviously happened less and less. Fortunately, everyone's schedules lined up and we were able to plan this. Now, it is important for me to insert here that recently I had been off work for a month. It was of no fault of my own, and fortunately I am back to work now. Because of that though, money's really tight for me right now and my friends all knew this. We all go to Mike's to hang out, and it was a great night. We end up staying longer than expected and people get hungry. Some people decide they want to order pizza. They ask if I want to throw in some money for pizza and I say, no, gotta watch what I spend for a bit. Obviously I wanted some and could probably afford it, but I was trying to be responsible. Another friend of mine, we'll call Jake, offered to put in for me but I tell him, no, I will be okay. Maybe this is where I messed up. Anyways, right as they are about to order, I remember that I have a coupon for the place they are ordering from. It had been my birthday a week prior and received it as a gift or something. I let them know I have it and that they can use it and it added on a medium 1 topping for free. They're excited for it and accept it. I guess it's important to note that I have offered it willingly, not as a trade or bargain. The pizza arrives and everyone digs in. I ask everyone if it's cool if I have some of the medium pizza. At first, Jake and a couple others say yes, but then Mike says, you didn't put any money in. Why are you asking for pizza? I explain that this pizza wouldn't even be here if not for me, but he says that it also wouldn't be here without him because everyone else paid for the other pizza. Jake offered to throw in a few bucks for me again, but Mike said it's BS that I tried to pull this. It really put a damper on the night, and I ended up leaving without having any. Mike sent messages in the group chat about how I tried to pull a fast one on everyone. Most everyone is trying to stay out of it, outside of Jake who is still sticking by me. I understand that I didn't put money in, but I can't help but feel like he is making way too big a deal about this. So I come to you all. Am I the a-hole? Edit. There appears to be some misunderstanding, but the coupon was spend $20, get a 1 topping pizza for free. Not that I just add on 1 topping to an existing pizza. An entirely new pizza was added. Wow, not the a-hole. Your coupon bought that pizza, so you contributed. But the guy has issues. Who tries to deny a friend food and humiliate them? Absolute prick. Dude, you got them a free medium pizza. Does Mike want to pay you back for that? Unbelievable. Mike is totally the a-hole here. Did he read the first chapter of A Christmas Carol and see a life path? Jesus Christ. Even if the guy hadn't had a freaking coupon, if he were at my house, he'd be eating. Opie's friends angers me too. It is food. Opie, you are not the a-hole by any stretch of the imagination, but you need better friends. Not the a-hole. You didn't assume and take pizza. You asked for a slice of the pizza your coupon provided. My friend group would have looked at you like an alien and go, duh, we aren't just going to eat in front of you. So long as this wasn't a constant thing. Mike doesn't sound like a great friend. Agreed. This whole thing is strange. Someone is having a tough time. Friends help out. If this is how Mike treats a friend, imagine how he treats strangers. OP, not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend I'm uncomfortable with him referring to my house as our house? My boyfriend, 43 male, and I, 42 male, have been together just under 2 years. I have 2 children, both elementary age. I share custody with their father. Until recently, I was renting an apartment after I split with my ex-husband. I just bought a house, and I'm so happy to be creating a new comfortable home for my children. Getting this home feels like a major accomplishment for me, and I am proud that I can provide a better home for my kids now than during my marriage. I care about my boyfriend deeply, but I am not in a place where I want to live together with a partner yet. We have both been in stressful long-term marriages. I don't plan on remarrying. We have discussed this many times. He wants us to live together in the future. I told him I want that eventually, but I can't give him a time frame for when I may be ready for that. He gets along with my kids very well, but I'm reluctant to have him in a stepdad role for various reasons. Mental health issues and alcohol abuse, which he says he is actively addressing. He has a living situation that is less than ideal, and has been leaving things in my home every time he stays over. It started with some clothes, now it's a keyboard and guitar, and spare TV. I feel like this is a method of moving in without officially moving in. He has started using the term our a lot. Our house, our bed, our kids. I started a discussion about how it makes me uncomfortable that he behaves basically like we live together. When my kids are at their dad's, he's always over, and I have to basically ask if I can have nights home alone sometimes. I require regular recharge time alone for self-care. I don't get that opportunity often. He reacted pretty angrily because he said the terminology ours doesn't matter because we are 2 adults in a loving relationship. He sees things as ours because he cares and helps out, but I see it as him not respecting my boundaries. Am I being selfish and immature because I'm not quite ready to share? Am I overreacting to his use of the word ours? Now for the top comments before reading the mini update. Not a-hole. You need to feel good about enforcing whatever boundaries you need in a relationship. The guy is definitely trying to sidle into living at your place full-time, so he has to back off from doing that if you're not comfortable with it. The place isn't an ours, it's a yours. I worry if he does get in, next he'll stake a claim in her property. I hope he sounds like a bright woman, but homosexuals are sneaky. I am also worried about that too. I'm in the process of updating my will now that I own a property, and as of now, everything goes to my kids. Your boyfriend is definitely giving homosexual vibes if you say his living situation isn't ideal. Protect your home that you worked so hard for. That is for you and your kids. Not the a-hole, by the way. My ex is homosexual and tried this. First, it was things he just forgot at my house, which led you then calling it our house. Luckily for me, I'd moved in October and he immediately started talking about inviting his friends over for the holidays. I tried to tell him that I wanted a quiet holiday just myself and my son. He blew up at me and I told him he needed to leave. As he walked out the door, he said he'd be back in an hour so I had some time to cool off. When he returned, the few things he had at my house were in a box on the porch, and my best friend's husband was changing the locks. Not the a-hole. I think I see something here. He's not in a good place, poor living situation, mental health, leaving things at your house. He's in trouble, maybe about to be evicted. Certainly he's nesting, putting his valuables at her house and moving them from his. And it's too soon, too pushy. I think the fact that you don't see him as a stepfather material is significant. Even if you can't fully put it into words, you know there's something up. It's been 2 years, and there is definitely a plan for the long term, but he can't wait. Is it because he loves you so much? Or because he needs somewhere to stay and someone to look after him? Be careful, OB. It's been 2 years. If it was about a place to stay, he would have been in the apartment before the house. I think the real issue could be just what she said. She's always had a problem with boundaries in her marriage. Escaped what I assume wasn't a healthy relationship. Finally, she got on her feet to where she could provide a stable, comfortable home for her kids. A feat she probably saw as impossible alone. And now here's the man that she loves, trying to move in and lay claim to what she worked hard for. It might be reminiscent of how things began for her and her ex, and she's afraid of history repeating itself, in my opinion. I agree with your take on this. My instincts are telling me that this isn't right because I've done this before. I'm learning, just wish it was a bit quicker. Now for the mini update. Thank you to everybody for the mostly supportive comments. Clearly, I have settled into old habits and did properly establish boundaries in this relationship from the beginning. I'm going to spend my evening alone, packing up his things. Next story. Am I the a-hole for cutting off my wife's access to our finances and giving her an allowance? I, male 35, have been married to my wife, female 33, for 10 years, and we have a son, male 7. My wife is a homemaker and I work as an engineer. We have a joint account and she has access to my other accounts. I've always trusted her and never controlled the money. A few weeks ago, I noticed some strange money transactions in my rarely accessed account going to her account. There were several dollar transfers to her account on different days. I asked my wife what she was using the money for, but she tried to evade the questions. But I kept pressing, and she confessed. She was using this money to gamble in online betting sites and lost over $9,000 in gambling in the past few weeks. She admitted to having a gambling problem and was trying to stop. So, I decided to cut off her access to our finances and give her an allowance. Now, she was very upset about this and said I was being unfair and controlling. I think I'm being reasonable. I'm not sure if I can trust her again after what she did. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You are doing the smart thing, protecting what you still have, for both of you. You'd be dumb not to. That being said, if you value the marriage and if she does too, she needs therapy to overcome this and earn your trust back. Stat. If she's not willing to go to Gamblers Anonymous, then she has not hit rock bottom. You are not the a-hole. But I have a warning for you. Just because you cut off her access to the finances that you have, you probably need to freeze your credit as well. Because you have not cut off her access to your credit. I have no doubt she knows your social security number. She can easily apply for a payday loan or a line of credit on your house just using an online company. All she's going to need is social security numbers and your personal information, which I'm sure she has, along with your tax returns. I had a good friend whose significant other had a gambling problem from her. They had separate finances, but it came out when he couldn't pay his part of the bills. Not only that, it turned out he had had a problem in the past and gone for help. He had relapsed. But before they began a relationship, he had never mentioned this to her. I told her then and there that if he was not willing to get help again, he needed to go, and I had liked him very much. But there was her child involved, and I told her she couldn't put him at risk by having an addict around who was not willing to get help. I know that sounds harsh and final, but when you have children involved and there is an addict of any kind, the child's needs come first. Your wife only came clean because she got caught, so you really need to lock down all your credit. If you have anything of value in the house and she does not get help, you'll probably come home to things missing, such as jewelry or coin collection, etc. So please just bear that in mind. An addiction is an addiction. Until an addict hits rock bottom, they generally don't stop. They will drag you and everyone down with them. Not because they want to, but because they cannot control the addiction, and it becomes all-consuming and all-important. I would honestly be asking her to go stay with her parents until she gets help. Listen to this person. Freeze your credit. Freeze hers as well. Next story. I, male 33, will be divorcing my wife, female 31, because she feels it's dangerous for me to be around our child, female 2 months. My wife complains about how clumsy I am. I do drop things by accident when my hand hits it unknowingly, and so I do agree with her, but it's not that bad that I'm knocking over things every day. I really just laughed this off before, when my wife brought it up, but during the pregnancy she often started to say how she won't let me hold a child because of how clumsy I am. Again, I laughed it off at times, and sometimes when I did take it seriously, I told her there is a difference between knocking over the TV remote and dropping a kid from your arms. Still, I did not think about it as much. But then my child was born, and I was shocked at how reluctant she was to even let me hold a baby in the hospital. I suddenly saw her panicking when I was even around a baby. It caused a lot of fights, and they've continued till now. It's been a couple of months, and I have not been able to hold my baby more than thrice, including once when I held her at a hospital. She now sleeps in the other bedroom with a baby and doesn't even let me hold my own daughter, even if I am sitting on a bed where there wouldn't even be a remote chance of her ever getting hurt even if I dropped her. She almost never leaves our daughter alone with me. I suggested I use a child carrier to take her on walks, but she refuses that too, oftentimes suggesting that I'd tip over and fall face first. I think she's overreacting, and I have also suggested going to therapy together, but all she said about the suggestion is, talking won't fix your body. She keeps telling me that I'll be the reason that our child would die if I ever held her, and as a father, I should realize how dangerous it is and comply with her. All this has really affected me, and I've become a lot more self-conscious. Every time I mess up doing something, she tells me that it's proof that what she's saying is right. I'm a calm person and a pacifist at most times. Even during our fights, I've tried to reason with her, find a middle ground, but I've realized that there isn't any. I love my wife and my child more than myself, but I cannot continue this considering how I can't even hold my own child, play with her, take her on walks, etc. Day before yesterday's night after a fight, I snuck into her bedroom after my wife was asleep. I went to my daughter. I didn't hold her, just held her hand and looked at her. I was emotional and I did whisper a few things to her. Not that she could hear or understand because she was fast asleep. But this woke my wife up, who was right beside her. She screamed at first and then told me to leave the room immediately. I told her that I was not going to hold her and that I was just there to see her and hold her hand. But she didn't believe me and accused me of being ignorant and selfish. I did lose my temper too, and I offloaded these entire 2 months of frustration onto her. I feel terrible about how I acted that night, and I'm staying at a hotel as she told me to leave the next morning. I wasn't in a mood to argue either, so I quietly left. I cannot seem to get over any of what has happened. And even though it hurts so much, I think I'm going to part ways. Now for the top comments. Please call your wife's doctor. This extremely controlling behavior based on faulty logic is a sign of a postpartum mental health problem. You don't deserve this treatment, but your wife's psychosis puts her at risk of self-harm or worse, or actions that could endanger your baby. I'm sure you're sleep deprived, so haven't noticed the severity of this behavior, but your wife and child are both in danger. It is not uncommon for deaths to happen at this stage. Your wife needs immediate psychiatric support. I do believe postpartum could be to blame, but I'm concerned how she would talk about how she didn't want him holding the baby before she was born. Maybe she was anxious about it during the pregnancy. I'm assuming she's a first-time mom, and PPD turned it up to 11. Regardless of the exact origin, there is a serious mental health problem going on, and she needs help for her well-being, and that of your baby. Call the doctor. I used to work in inpatient mental health wards, primarily the mom and baby ward. Your wife is showing some concerning signs of postpartum anxiety. I'd give your health visitor/midwife/doctor a call and express her concerns before the anxiety manifests itself in more harmful ways. Although preventing a father from bonding and caring for his child is harmful already. 100% this. Divorce is totally your choice, but get her this help first for your baby's sake. I agree 100%. It's hard because this isn't what people think of when they think postpartum depression, but it takes all kinds of forms. Some anxieties happen during pregnancy and become extreme in postpartum. Your wife needs help. She could be in danger, even beyond preventing your bond. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife she is neglecting our older kids? I'm male 40 and married to Kate, female 38 for 8 years. I work in construction and she's a kindergarten teacher. We have 4 kids, an 8-year-old boy, a 6-year-old boy, a 2-year-old boy, and a 6-month-old girl. Kate has always wanted a girl. After our second child, we had a talk, and I expressed that our family is perfect with our 2 wonderful boys. She cried and suggested trying one last time, as she has always desired a big family. After our 3rd child was born, I scheduled a vasectomy, but due to lockdowns and backlogs, my appointment got postponed. Although I used rubbers, it seems one broke, leading to Kate getting pregnant again. She finally got a daughter she always wanted. From the moment she announced it, she began using phrases like, "Finally, a girl," or "I can finally enjoy having the baby I wanted." I assumed she was just overly excited. Honestly, to me, what's the difference? They're all our kids. We live in Canada and Kate is on an 18-month maternity leave. She seems to have shifted the responsibility of the 3 older kids onto me, as if she doesn't see them anymore. Our youngest boy, the toddler, has speech delays, requiring me to take unpaid time off for speech therapy. Meanwhile, Kate makes TikTok videos showcasing how she dresses up our baby girl and conducts a baby fashion show. When I come home, I either end up ordering food or cooking, or the boys will have no dinner. I have done their laundry, or they would have nothing to wear at school. Meanwhile, she claims to have already eaten and is busy snuggling with the baby. The other day, I had to attend a parent-teacher afternoon because I later found out she took the baby for a commercial audition. I told her last night that I'm so tired I almost fell asleep driving to work. I expressed that I'm glad she's enjoying the baby, but we have 3 other kids to take care of too. She got angry and said she's on leave to recover, it's not a vacation, and that I'm being an a-hole. Please tell me, am I? You need to explain that her behavior will damage the relationships with your older children. It's wonderful to be excited, but not to the detriment of the family and your marriage. Nip this in the bud. Not the a-hole. I did try to tell her that. I specifically told her that our youngest boy needs extra attention since he is not verbal. She got very mad at me and ended the conversation. Insist and do not relent. This is a massive problem in the making. Her focus on one child over the others is not normal or acceptable. Does she need a therapist? This sounds like the wheels are falling off her wagon. Not the a-hole. It would be wise to set some boundaries with your wife. Talk to your wife about these problems and tell her if she continues to neglect the boys, she has two options. 1. Going into family therapy so you guys can work on this. 2. If she doesn't want to go for option 1, you guys get a divorce. This behavior is totally not done. She doesn't respect you and your boys. She just wants to have a mini her and now her dream came true. Your boys deserve having a loving mother who protects them and cares for them. And you deserve a loving and respecting wife. You need to be a team with your wife to take care of all 4 children. If she doesn't see it that way, she can go, and you deserve so much better. I've suggested therapy, but she rolled her eyes and said no. Yes, baby is definitely her mini-me. She mentions that all the time that she finally has a mini-me. Blonde hair and blue eyes. Boys all have my brown hair and brown eyes. I get your daughter is an infant now, but this is also terrible behavior for the baby, especially as she grows. Your wife is literally setting up the stage for mental and emotional abuse for your daughter. She is already doing this and neglects her 3 sons. Start writing everything down with dates and times. For example, the time she spends online recording with your daughter, the skipped meals, the missed appointments, the obsessive language she uses when speaking about your daughter, refusal to seek help. The fact that she lets the other kids go hungry because she already ate and missing appointments at a school for auditions are really messed up and harmful for all 4 kids. Am I the a-hole for canceling my credit card after my boyfriend refused to return it to me? I'll preface by saying that me, 27 female, and my boyfriend 30 have been together for 3 years and a half. I've been jumping from one job to another, while he has been unemployed due to health issues that affected his performance at work. Usually, I'm the one handling rent, bills, groceries, etc. I use my credit card to make any purchase I want. Last week, my boyfriend out of nowhere asked for my credit card. I asked why, since I'm the one who handles payments and supermarket trips. He told me he wanted to buy some food and I agreed to let him take it but told him to return it later. He got back later and when I asked about my credit card, he was like, "What credit card?" I thought he was joking, so I told him to just give it back. He said to just keep it with him. I asked why and he said so he could start handling paying for stuff on my behalf. I felt uncomfortable and said I'd rather not burden him with his stuff and asked him to hand over the credit card. He refused and said that he'll just keep it, since it doesn't have that much money anyway. I was livid. I tried to argue but he told me to just trust him and let him keep it and swore he won't spend a penny from it. Next morning, I went and canceled it and then registered a new one. He must have had tried to use it because he called and was confused asking why the credit card was not valid anymore. I told him it's because I canceled it and registered a new one. He lost it and started scolding me, saying he couldn't believe I had this level of pettiness, and kept on about how I don't trust him with my finances, and how financially abusive I have become lately. I hung up on him. The argument continued at home and he called me paranoid and unreasonable and all that. Then he started cold-shouldering me and sulking about it for days. I do feel like I hurt his feelings and showed an amount of distrust towards him. Am I the a-hole for canceling the credit card? Edit/adding in some info. Like I said, he has a physical disability that limits his opportunities for work. He receives no disability benefits because he doesn't want to. He refuses to acknowledge he has a disability and pretends that it doesn't exist at all. When I tell him to look for a job, he'd blame people for purposely refusing to employ him and say that they look down on him like he's lacking or beneath them. He comes from a humble background, no longer has contact with family due to abandonment issues but has some friends to lean on. Since someone asked, the answer is I do almost 80% of the chores while he does the other 20%. Reasons for that is his disability. Finally, I pay for rent, bills, groceries, his meds and transportation as well, so I needed a card to be constantly with me. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He swore he won't spend a penny from it, followed by the next day must have had tried to use it. Your instincts were excellent, as was your decisive and immediate action. You know what he wanted was wrong. Trust yourself. This right here. Then has the nerve to say she's mistreating him financially. He's using her and leeching. Not the a-hole. Maybe time to cancel your boyfriend as well. I wish this forum wasn't so divorce happy because it really takes away from a situation like this where the only reasonable answer is to actually break up. This would be such a deal breaker for me. To be fair, The can't work because disability but still refuses to acknowledge disability and gets benefits for it thing would have been a deal breaker for me in the first place. But taking your credit card and refusing to give it back when asked is so disrespectful I could never trust him again. If your marriage is in such a state that you have to turn here, it's almost always over anyway. Seriously, sometimes I may have issues with my partner, but not to the level where I need a sanity check from strangers. The last time that happened with me, it was like, so my boyfriend blocked me in. Was it okay for me to yell at him to leave me alone? I don't want to be abusive. I was thankful that people in my life went, WTF, I didn't realize it was this bad. Sometimes people's sense of normal is broken down so bad. Also beware. Since he isn't working, that means he can get to the mail first and take the replacement card when it arrives. This, and lock your credit files. He might be shadier than you think. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to defend my wife to my mom and telling my wife to get over it? We currently live with my mom and will be out as soon as possible. We had a baby and a couple setbacks, but this isn't working for anyone. In the past, I've always stood up for my wife when my mom was rude. Recently, my wife had a friend over and my mom was going on a date. He was waiting for her in the living room and I guess overheard my wife and her friend talking about how hot he was, and really going on and on about it, even as far as they want to go and smell his neck, and how was my mom even going to talk to him because they would just blank out and stare. He mentioned it to my mom while they were out, and my mom was angry the next morning. She yelled at my wife, called her creepy and jealous. My wife asked me if I was really going to let her yell. I said it is humiliating that their conflict stems from her talking about another guy like that, so why would I defend her? My mom did have an attitude, so I feel kind of bad. My wife then said my mom shouldn't have let him sleep over when we have a baby, and my mom doesn't really know him. And my mom lost it and was screaming, "Do you want to be on the streets? One more word and you are homeless." My wife turned to me crying and asked if I really wasn't going to do anything. I said I was embarrassed by what she said, and she's acting entitled when it is my mom's house. She called me a coward and ran off. She's now refusing to speak to me and telling people how I'm a mama's boy, which I think is unfair as we don't even get along anymore. But I don't see why I would stand up for her when she humiliated me with what she was saying. Not stay home. Your wife is wrong here in every way. Your mother isn't obligated to change her social life just because you are all there. She's right. You are lucky she lets you live there. Adding 2 adults and a baby to her home can't be easy on her. Let's all call out that this all started with a wife and friend being creeps. There really isn't much to defend here. If someone is being a creep and gets called out for it, I'm not going to back them up. I'm going to call out the creepy behavior. The nature of the relationship doesn't change this. Yeah, society even gives women a pass for being creepy about attractive men, whereas it's more common to call out men who are being creepy about attractive women. It's definitely true that a man being creepy to a woman is more likely to cause bodily harm than a woman to a man, but both definitely need to be called out when they happen. I'm a woman, and imagining anyone other than an established partner, regardless of gender, talking about how hot I am and wanting to smell me? Big alarm bells. I'm surprised Opie's wife, as a woman who has presumably been creeped on by men in the past, didn't have more self-awareness. If my partner said this about someone else, my concern would be with them objectifying someone and being creepy, not about how embarrassed I am that they found someone other than me attractive. I wouldn't be backing up my partner either. So I don't agree with Opie's reasoning for not supporting their wife, but I agree with the end result. This is a major mess around and find out moment for Opie's wife. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to split rent with my boyfriend? I, female 23, have been dating my boyfriend Jake, male 23, since our freshman year of college. In our last year of undergrad, we decided to rent an apartment together. We split everything 50-50, including utilities, groceries, and rent. We continued living together in the same town as our college after graduation, but recently we both got jobs in Chicago and we are currently living downtown. My dad works in real estate, and he has multiple investment properties. My dad generously allowed me to live in one of his properties rent-free, but he said that my boyfriend would have to pay him $400 a month for rent. My dad is very protective, but he has been nothing but kind to my boyfriend. My dad's reasoning for making my boyfriend pay rent is that he wants to be sure that my boyfriend is with me for me, and not because he will have a free place to live. Keep in mind, if my dad was renting this apartment out to tenants, he would charge $2,100 a month for rent. Very ritzy building in the middle of downtown Chicago. My boyfriend is mad at me because he asked me for my half of the $400 for rent, and I explained to him that I will not be paying rent. My dad is only charging him. He says that we have been splitting rent for the past 2 years. So why would we stop now? Our rent in our college town was $1,200, so we were both paying $600 a month. Our apartment in Chicago is significantly nicer, and he is paying $200 less a month than what he was in college. Is the idea that my dad doesn't charge me for rent but charges my boyfriend so crazy? Should I suck it up and pay half because I can afford it? Edit. Jake and I still split utilities and groceries 50-50. And when we go out on date nights, we switch off who pays for it. If it pays 1 week, I'll pay the next. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Rent isn't $400. It's $2,100. Point out that if he wants to split rent, then do so by having your dad charge the full amount, which means his portion is $1,050. Pay your dad that, and dad can give it back to you or put it in an escrow to save for a future house. The $400 is a major discount for him, and dad lets you have it for free. This is exactly what I was thinking. The boyfriend thinks he is entitled to OP's perks. He is the boyfriend, not even husband. He is not immediate family, and the dad is giving him a very good deal already. Don't expect wifey-level service at girlfriend prices. Not the hole. A nice ritzy building, check. Located in downtown, check. Only $400 a month, double check. Near your jobs, check. Getting the family discount from girlfriend's dad, check. What more does your boyfriend want? Clearly he's not seeing the bigger picture. He's getting a lot of perks because of you, and he only has to pay a fraction of the rent. Doesn't he realize that millions don't have that luxury in these critical times of the economy? Plus, he's failing miserably with your dad's test. Your dad's suspicions are kinda right. Maybe dad is spot on with his reasoning. Not the OP, but depending on how hard your boyfriend pushes, this should be a red flag. I think your dad just showed a lot of who Jake is. Explain that rent is $2,100 a month, and he is expected to pay $400. You are paying $1,700, but you are receiving support from your family to do so. If he would like to split rent, he is welcome to pay $1,050. Your boyfriend is either 1, greedy and disingenuous, or 2, stupid. Either way is not attractive. I vote for this too. Giving him the benefit of the doubt, maybe he's really not aware how much rent costs in this area. But if he doubles down on splitting $400 rent, then I think he definitely failed Papa's test like a fool. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my child's mother I'm not interested in her problems? Our child is 3 and we have altering weeks. My mother and sisters help me with childcare when I'm working, and I know I'm very lucky for this. My ex has recently started complaining that she's having trouble with childcare. The cost has become unreasonable, and our daughter is at an age now where she screams and cries when left with someone she doesn't know. And she can scream. My girl has a bright future as a tuba player because those lungs are powerful. I told my ex that my mom could watch our daughter for her, but she said she didn't want my family watching her daughter on her time. I figured that was the end of the conversation, but she brought it up again at the next swap. I asked her why she was telling me this, and she got offended. She said I should care about her struggle since it involves our daughter. I said it's not possible to sympathize with problems that have easy solutions. She wants to waste her money on babysitters our daughter hates. That's her choice. If it causes problems for her, those are her problems. If she doesn't want my help, which she doesn't, then there's no reason for us to discuss her problems, as nothing can come out of it. She said I was being an a-hole and she just wanted a sympathetic ear, that she needs to talk about her problems sometimes. I said that's what a therapist is for, or her friends or something. I'm not going to pretend to be interested in her problems. I don't like problems. I like solutions. She said that that's why our relationship ended, and I agreed that it was, and asked her why she expected me to do something for her now that we're broken up. Listen to problems without offering solutions, when I wouldn't even do that when we're together. She knows I'm only interested in solutions, not problems. Why was she expecting something else? My sister said it's important to have good communication with my child's mother, and I should pretend to care even though I don't, just to keep that communication line open. She said it's only once a week, and saying "I'm sorry, that sucks, costs me nothing, and takes less time than saying, 'Your problems aren't real problems and I don't care,' and start a fight." She might have a point. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I can't believe your ex is turning down free childcare. Unless your family is rude or mistreat her in some way. Some parents use an app for communication. Could be something to look into. My mom is always nice to her, and my ex really liked my mom before we broke up. For her, it's the principle of the thing. Like, my family should only see our daughter on my time. Which, fine, but then figure out your own childcare, right? Is it possible that instead of wanting a sympathetic ear to listen, she actually wanted money out of the situation? Like she thought she can get you to pay for her childcare if she complains enough. Not the a-hole. She needs to move on and stop depending on you for emotional support. Divorce means the end of the relationship between you and her, as anything more than parents. We weren't married, but I completely agree with you. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not paying my niece's college tuition? 40-year-old male here. My niece, Bryn, recently started attending her second-choice college. And apparently, I'm a selfish a-hole for making it impossible for her to go to her dream school. Earlier this year, when Bryn got accepted to her dream school, the family had a little get-together to celebrate. While there, my sister, Bryn's mom, pulled me aside and asked if I would pay Bryn's tuition. The school is out of state, so it was going to be too expensive for my sister and brother-in-law, a little upwards of $50,000 per year. I said no. I'll admit that I felt terrible since we were at a gathering to celebrate her acceptance, and now she couldn't attend. But I was also blindsided because there had never been any mention before about me financing Bryn's college. My parents, sister, brother-in-law, and Bryn nagged me for months trying to change my mind, saying that Bryn is my only niece, and I should reward her for working so hard. She really is a great student, and I'm proud of her graduating on the honor roll. But I just don't think that means I need to spend $50,000 per year. I consider myself to be a pretty frugal guy, relative to what I make at least, and $50,000 is about what I spend annually for all my living expenses combined. I thought that by the time Bryn started at her current university, she would get over it and see that this school is great too. But I'm still getting the cold shoulder and snide remarks every time I go to my sister's or parents' house. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Everyone else involved is though. What kind of backward nonsense is that? You don't understand though. The family at the moment isn't allowed to say no. Wait a second. Why would there be any expectation for you to fund her education? It seems a little bizarre that out of nowhere you'd be asked to stump up $50,000 a year. I mean, if that's what happens, then definitely not the a-hole and your family's crazy. But I don't know. Something doesn't add up. Based on my experience of AITA questions, I assume that OP has no children, and therefore siblings that do see him as an ATM. OP is definitely not the a-hole here. You hit the nail on the head. Edit. Some people are asking why my sister thinks I would be able to pay for this. I make about $700,000 annually and have no children or wife. I've helped my family out of some rough spots before. $30,000 in medical debt, etc. I feel guilty because I probably got them accustomed to sudden favors when they needed it. As someone else stated, I became an ATM. But I think $50,000 every single year is different. Final edit. I will consider paying partial tuition. Earlier, I was thinking about paying for one of the 4 years. We'll see. Am I the a-hole for making my boyfriend eat fast food for a week? My boyfriend grew up in a house that valued outdated gender norms. The women were always responsible for cooking and cleaning, so he didn't learn how to do any of that for most of his life. That is, until he moved in with me after college. He's been good about a few things. He doesn't mind helping with dishes or handling the laundry. But the one thing I can't seem to get him to do is learn how to cook. The only thing he can do is microwave frozen meals. I've been trying to teach him the basics, but it seems like it goes through one ear and just comes out the other. He still can't turn on the oven or use the stove without help. The toaster is too complicated for him to use, he claims. Doesn't know how to boil eggs, cook rice, or even how to measure out ingredients using cups. I just don't understand why he can't grasp this, but it's fine with other things. Here's the part where I may be an a-hole. I went on a trip 2 weeks ago for work. I'm in charge of buying groceries. We have separate accounts. And I realized how expensive his frozen meals actually are. $3 to $4 each. I said, screw it, and bought the easiest ingredients I could find for a lot cheaper for him to cook on his own. He doesn't like leftovers, so me cooking ahead for him was out. Before I left, I sat him down once again and gave him a very long lesson on using the oven, toaster, and stove, as well as how to boil/scramble eggs, toast a piece of toast, boil rice/noodles, and heat up pasta sauce. I also taught him how to pan fry things like onions and other veggies and how to tell when they were ready. In case he didn't want to cook both lunch and dinner, I also bought things to make salads and fixing for sandwiches. I come back a week later and he is angry. He claims I practically left him to starve, and how I know he has trouble cooking. I retaliate, saying I showed him what to do, and I get a whole range of excuses. Setting the oven/stove temperature is too complicated. He cut his finger chopping onions and couldn't chop any until his cut healed. He only likes the salad kit, so everything is balanced. Apparently, he only ate sandwiches, canned goods, and fast food for a week. He thinks I'm a major a-hole for not telling him I'm not buying his frozen meals and leaving him alone to fend for himself. On one hand, I do think it was wrong of me to not tell him I didn't buy his meals. And as someone who grew up in a home pretty much only boiled hot dogs and veggies, and only properly learned how to cook after moving out, I do feel for him. But at the same time, after a few months of not getting the simplest concepts, I'm left feeling partially justified in my actions. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Info, how old are you two and how long have you been living together? He's 23 and I'm 25. We've been officially together for 2 years but only moved in with each other 2 months ago. Not the a-hole, but I say this. 2 months is not a lot of time for someone who never had to cook a day in his life to fully grasp it sometimes. He's an a-hole for his overreaction, but only you will know this. If he's actually trying to learn and failing or just refusing to learn. The way he's treating cooking is a lot different from the way he treated learning how to clean. Once he saw how I was washing the dishes or removing stubborn stains in clothes, he took over and asked me questions. With cooking, he doesn't ask any questions or step in to try. I really don't want to believe he's being malicious on purpose, but your comment makes me think otherwise. How did he eat before y'all moved in together? Did he not want you to go on this trip without him? He could be trying to guilt you into not doing that again. This is the first time he's been away from home. His mother was always responsible for cooking for him and his family. He's never had a problem with me leaving before and just buying him what he wants. It's just that money's tight right now. Our rent went up and it seems like everything's getting more expensive. Info, why are you with some guy who can't manage to use a toaster? I'm much more concerned with the inability to measure something in a cup. Weaponized incompetence. Anyone can use a toaster, but boyfriend just wants OP to cook for him forever. OP, not the a-hole. You are not responsible for your boyfriend's food. Please consider if you want to be his free live-in cook. Also, nobody died from eating sandwiches for a week. Your boyfriend is manipulating you into feeling guilty. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for wanting to make my boyfriend homeless because of my lunch habits? Alex, male 30, and I, female 33, got together in late 2019 and recently decided to move in together. I asked for a trial run where we both kept our flats for a few months, so no one loses their place if it doesn't work out. He had issues with this, but I held firm that it was for everyone's benefit, and he eventually agreed. We decided he'd stay with me as my flat is bigger and closer to his work, then after a few months we'd look for a house. I work at home and he's now close enough to his office to come back for lunch. He initially assumed we'd be eating lunch together each day because I'm home, but I don't eat lunch and I don't take a break for it. My preference is to take smaller breaks when I want them and eat a snack around 3 p.m. A piece of fruit and a bag of nuts is my go-to. This has been an issue since he moved in. He walked in while I was on calls 2 days ago, running and loudly commented about it being lunchtime in the UK. I work for an international organization. I was furious, as it prompted an unnecessary and awkward conversation with my boss, who was concerned I was risking burnout. He agreed to not going forward, although my position is that, during his lunch hour, we don't really need to make time to see each other at all, as he'll be back for the day in 5 hours. The issue is he then started insisting I need to eat breakfast and lunch, even if he's not included. For context, I gained some weight when I started working from home and my current eating habits suit my schedule while keeping my weight where I want it. His claim is that I starve myself to log in as soon as I wake up, and that I'm too obsessed with work to take breaks. I've explained that my eating habits suit me, and I don't want to change them, but he uses my eating normally at a weekend as some kind of gotcha and won't accept what I'm saying. He brings it up daily. This is a problem but not the problem. The problem is that this has been going on for nearly a month, and it just isn't the life for me. We sat down to talk this evening, and I said that I'm not enjoying living together, and it's too much too soon. So I'd like him to move back to his place this weekend. Turns out, he did not keep the flat. He gave it up straight away and moved his stuff to his mom's. His reasoning being he knew we'd be fine. Dear reader, we are not fine. And now he says I need to put the effort in to work through this and compromise, and that I'm too angry to talk. And me being a workaholic is going to cost us the relationship, so we will calm down and talk about it another time. My position is that him lying about his place is a deal breaker even if the rest wasn't. My best friend just had a baby and my mom is on holiday, so I have no one to tell me if I'm out of order. Guys, am I the a-hole? Edit. So I realized after posting this, and after he stormed out, that there's a bonus element here. We agreed that because we were both keeping our flats, he wouldn't contribute to my rent/bills because he still had all his normal outgoings. He has bought groceries a few times and took me out for a meal the first weekend he came, but other than that, he has been living for free. I am livid. Not the whole. If you're not happy, you're not happy. You can't seriously be expected to stay in a situation that makes you miserable. It's time to move on from this relationship. And he won't be homeless. He can stay at his mom's with the rest of his stuff. I guess what I haven't made clear is that the eating thing is the only real problem we have. So I might be the a-hole because I can't see why this would be happening if he wasn't concerned. The relationship was otherwise pretty perfect before this, and it feels super petty even if it has been driving me up the wall. It's just so weird. Except the eating thing is not the only real problem. 1, he lied to you about keeping his place. 2, he doesn't respect your boundaries. 3, he is trying to manipulate you into doing what he wants. 4, he is gaslighting you into believing he is right. And on your post, you say the fact that he lied about keeping his place is a deal breaker anyways. So why are you questioning yourself? Next story. Am I the a-hole for being upset at my husband for what he got me for my birthday? My 39th birthday was last week. Months ago, I was talking with my mom about a part of our state that I love to visit, and she mentioned that she has never been there. I told her we should go together sometime, and we started planning it. We ended up deciding on going there for my birthday. During the planning, we realized that my mom, my brother, and I had never been on a trip together, just the 3 of us, so we invited my brother too. My husband was fully supportive of us taking this trip, and would be staying home with our 3-year-old son and our dog. Before we left last week, my husband gave me the gifts he bought me for my birthday. He got me some comfy pajamas, a sun hat, and some good wine and cheese to bring with on a trip. Normally, I would be totally okay with that gift as we don't really splurge on birthday gifts anymore. But he had been talking about getting me a smartwatch and new luggage for my trip ever since we started planning it. He knows I can be kind of picky about gifts as I have exchanged some of the gifts he's got me in the past for different colors or options. But this time, I told him to just pick something out for me as I want those things for the trip. He offered instead to go shopping with me so that I could pick out exactly what I want. Because if I take them on a trip and don't like them, it's not likely I could return or exchange them. I thought that was a good idea. But life got busy, and before I knew it, it was the week of our trip and we hadn't had a chance to actually go shopping together. So the time comes for us to leave, and part of me was expecting my husband to surprise me with a new watch or weekend bag. But he didn't. I admit I was pretty disappointed that he didn't take the initiative to just get me those things on his own. I tried not to let it bother me during the trip, but it was always kind of in the back of my mind. After we got back, I mentioned to him that I was disappointed that he didn't get me the watch and bag like he said he would. He told me that he thought we had agreed to do it together, but I told him he knew how busy we were, and it wouldn't have been much effort for him to just do it on his own. He got offended and told me that I just spent thousands of dollars on a nice, relaxing trip with my family while I stayed home and took care of everything, and I'm complaining about a watch and a bag? I told him that he knew how much I was looking forward to having those items for my trip, and I'm just disappointed that he didn't realize that and take the opportunity to do something special for me. He apologized for ruining my trip, but I know it wasn't sincere and he's just telling me what he thinks I want to hear. I offered to go shopping with him sometime to pick them out, and he told me to just do it myself. Now I feel like crap, and I know he's mad at me for being ungrateful for the things he did get me, and for allowing me the opportunity to have a trip like that with my family. Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole, because you set up a damned if you do and damned if you don't scenario for your husband. The two of you had agreed to go together to pick out exactly what you want. Life got in the way of that plan. If he had done it on his own, there was just as high a likelihood you would have been upset it wasn't exactly the color/size/kind you wanted, or that he had done it without you despite your prior agreement. This was a no-win for your husband no matter what he did, so he chose the better option for not wasting a lot of money on something you may not like. This. OP, how often is your husband walking on eggshells trying to meet your standards? He sounds exhausted and like he's already used to these no-win scenarios. Please check your behavior before you fall into a pattern of emotional abuse. Granted, maybe this is only a gift-giving issue and not typical, in which case I apologize for reading into it. But the fact that you admit he got you appropriate and thoughtful presents and still went after him because you didn't get exactly this one thing is not great. He sounds exhausted. I'm exhausted just reading about OP. I can't imagine how her husband feels. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for getting mad at my wife because she didn't clean the house? The situation happened last Friday, but I'm still so upset about it. I, 28 male, and my wife, 27 female, have been married for 3 years now. She has always been a bit messy, but I'm not the cleanest person in the world, so it hasn't bothered me at all. We had recently welcomed our son 5 months ago, and he is pretty easy to handle. He does all the normal baby stuff, but is easier to calm down, so that's a plus. However, my wife has been suffering from PPD and has become very messy. When I was on paternity leave, I could help her more since she didn't want to go to therapy, and housework and baby work has led to me shouldering a bit more responsibility. But I love my wife and kids, so I don't mind. The issue is that since I was on leave, I missed my turn to host our monthly get-together. My department does this thing where every month one of us hosts the rest as a bonding experience. It is done at our respective houses where the host entertains the people, introduce their family and whatnot. I was supposed to host it, and I was thinking that I would reserve a spot at a restaurant instead. I told my wife my plan, and she insisted that I host it here. She has been to these get-together and loved them. I asked her if she would be okay, and she said she could handle it. After I placed the pre-orders for food and other necessities, I sat my wife down and asked her if she could manage to keep the house clean for that day. If not, I would hire housekeeping to do it. She said that I shouldn't waste unnecessary money and that we should keep it clean. I told her that I would leave early that day to get everything ready. Come to the day of the event and I'll leave work early and my house is a mess. Food stains on the wall, baby food on the floor, and my son is crying because of a dirty diaper. I was so angry. I changed his diaper and found my wife upstairs lying in her bed. I asked what was going on, and she said that she couldn't get out of bed. The mess was too big to clean, so I tried to get a reservation at a restaurant, but none of them had a space for such a big gathering. I had to end up canceling the event. My coworkers were really understanding, but it was still humiliating. I told her how upset I was because I asked her to do something that she agreed on, but she blamed the baby and started to cry. I didn't bother comforting her and have been sleeping on a couch since then. I might be wrong because I'm angry at a woman that had PPD, but she told me she was able to handle it. I feel stupid for believing that. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, multiple people have been asking as to why she isn't in therapy. It's because she doesn't want to go. She's in denial about her condition and doesn't think anything is wrong with her. I've brought up therapy, different types of treatment, and have even asked her best friend to talk to her for me. Whenever I ask, she insists that she's fine. She's shut down the first two options, and whenever I bring it up, it ends in a fight. When her best friend tried to help her, she messed up and said that I sent her. My wife exploded and cussed me out for trying to trick her. I'm getting tired. Any advice is welcome. My wife doesn't do anything because I've been doing all the housework since she gave birth. I cook, clean, sweep, do the dishes and laundry, mop, etc. I also take care of the kid when I come back from work. I'm also the sole breadwinner. I do everything because I love my wife and I want her to take a break. Probably will be shot down for this, but if her PPD is that bad that she's lying in bed while her baby is covered in a dirty nappy, she either needs serious help or someone needs to be with the baby to make sure he's clean and fed and safe. I agree with this. That is not okay. No a-holes here. Sort of. Listen, your wife needs help and understanding. When you ask her, she thought she could handle it. The problem is that one moment you can, the next you can't. Prognosticating is impossible. So give her a break. And give yourself a break too. Your coworkers understand. It's not a humiliation. Stuff happens. Suggestion? Get that housekeeper thing going. Even once a week or every other week would take pressure off both of you. Yes, she thought she could handle it. Someone with depression. I think I can do something but end up not getting it done because the depression overwhelmed me. She wants to be back to her normal self. She needs help, not freezing her out. Am I the a-hole for not letting my boyfriend's younger siblings move in with us? Plus update. My boyfriend Eric, 26 male, and I, 25 female, recently moved in together. And by moved in together, I mean he moved into the home that I own outright, which I inherited from my grandmother. We live in a high cost of living area, and Eric's lease was up, and he was struggling to find a place he could afford. He asked to move in with me, and I hesitantly agreed. We've been dating for just under a year, and I feel like it was a little too soon. But since I can see a future with Eric, I agreed. Eric's family situation is a bit of a mess. His dad is in prison and his mother is an addict. Eric has 3 younger half-siblings, 12 male, 8 female, and 6 male. This week, they were removed from the home because his mom's boyfriend was violating the girl. The kids are sleeping on his aunt's floor right now because there's a shortage of foster homes in the area. And she can't keep them because she lives in a 2-bedroom apartment with her 2 kids. So from how it was described, the kids are going to be split up and sent to different foster homes/group homes. Eric's mother denies her boyfriend's actions and won't leave him because he pays the rent and buys her drugs basically. Eric wants me to agree to let the kids move in with us, and we raise them basically. I've known him for less than a year, and I've never met these kids. I feel bad for their situation, but I don't want to be responsible for someone else's kids. Even having them in my home would be a huge burden. Not to mention Eric doesn't make much money and can't afford to support them. I would have to support them. The government will only offer financial support for caring for them if he becomes a licensed foster parent, which is a lengthy process that he doesn't have time for. We've been fighting about this for the past 2 days, and I think our relationship is over either way. He thinks I'm a monster for letting his siblings go into foster care, but I think that what he's asking of me is way too much for someone you've been with less than a year. I absolutely do not want these kids in my home. I'm not willing to compromise on it. I know it wouldn't work out, and I don't want to have to evict him and his 3 siblings. Now for the top comments before reading the mini update. You're the a-hole. You should and can do something, but your ego is too big for empathy and compassion. What a total heartless crap show this comment section has become. At the least you could do is help your boyfriend find a place to move so he can take his siblings. Grow a heart and develop a conscience before it's too late. Adversely, if this was a post about puppies or kittens, everyone would be all about helping them. Unreal. How would you suggest I help him find a place? I helped his apartment search when he was looking for a studio, and there were very few available on his budget. How should I find a 3-bed for the price of one of the cheapest studios? Not a-hole, but I can see why you are so conflicted. Merely the fact that you have enough space isn't the appropriate deciding factor here. You and Eric don't have nearly the right foundation to take on 3 kids. That will most definitely need extra attention. You weren't even 100 about letting Eric move in to begin with. I am so sorry for those kids, but I have to agree with you that you can't and shouldn't be asked to take this on. Eric is welcome to have his feelings about your refusal, and this may end your relationship. But better to lose a man you've been with for a year than take on 3 children you will be responsible for that are not your responsibility. This, definitely not the a-hole. Already hesitant about letting the boyfriend move in, neither of them are yet equipped to raise young ones. There are a lot of ways to support them besides having them move in. The way this situation is going, it sounds like you will soon have a temporary roommate and no longer have a boyfriend. Don't do it. You are right to be hesitant to let him move in. He should get a better paying job, or get 2 jobs and get his own place. Once he gets his own place, he can apply to be the foster parent. There are lots of big brothers/sisters raising their siblings who are struggling, but they make it work. On a side note, addicted mother will be over to visit and asked to spend a night/a few weeks/a few months. No a-holes here, but I think it really depends on if you are all in for him or not. If you are all in and this is the person you want to marry, I would personally do it. On the stipulation that he becomes licensed, so y'all can get the foster parent money. But it sounds like you are not all in, so it's probably a good idea to end things now. For what it's worth, I hope he's able to get those kids. A kinship placement with someone who loves you really cannot be replicated in foster care. He's a great guy, I just don't think he's worth it. There's plenty of guys out there who have similar qualities, but won't expect me to support and raise 3 children I've never met. I wish the best for them all, but their future was never going to be with me. Not a-hole. My heart goes out to those kids. I totally understand him not wanting the kids to go into foster care, but this isn't your situation to clean up. Asking you to basically change your life to emotionally and financially support 3 kids that you don't know is a lot. His best bet is to work with your social worker and make time to start the guardianship process. I feel bad for him, but if he doesn't live with me, he won't be able to take them. They're just staying with the aunt for a few days, but for a family member to take actual custody of them, the social workers want them to have at least 2 open bedrooms, one for the boys and one for the girl. Eric can barely afford a studio, so I know he has no chance of being able to afford a 3-bedroom place in the area, which is why I feel really bad for the kids. They think their brother is going to come get them. Mini update. Okay guys, things didn't go as planned. The general consensus was that I'm not in the wrong, and I do agree. I showed him this post, and he flipped out on me. He packed his bags and is staying in a hotel room. We've broken up, basically. I feel terrible for his situation, and that of his siblings. I think people in the comments have pegged him for some kind of broke mooch, but is actually incredibly hardworking and kind. I don't envy his position, and he lashed out because he's stressed and upset. He gave me back my key and he won't be coming back. And that's the end of it, I guess. I'm sure a lot of you will be happy to hear that. I'm sad, but it's probably what's best for us. Next story. Am I the a-hole for evicting sister for stealing my kids' savings? My sister, who is 37, has been staying with me for a little over a month now. She got evicted from the extended stay where she had been staying for a year now. My wife and I decided she could stay with us while she looked for shelter or housing options. She only works 30 hours a week at a low-paying job and doesn't have any money. She was supposed to be looking diligently, but was barely putting in any effort. So my patience was already wearing a little thin before this incident. I don't want her to be homeless, but I want her to show some effort. Last night, my wife noticed her change jar was almost empty. She asked my son and I if we had taken any change. We both hadn't. My son is 9 but would just ask for money. So it was pretty obvious it was my sister. She denied it, and I kind of just stewed on it. I'm not the best at communicating my feelings sometimes. My wife calls me today upset about the findings last night. She asks me to check my son's piggy bank because she's afraid it's been pillaged as well. He's had it since he was 2. And there was probably $300 or so in it. I get home and check it, and it's empty besides a few pennies. I saw freaking red. I can't believe it. I'm shaking so mad. My wife and I converse about what we're going to do, and then call her into the living room and confront her. There's just no holding back my rage. I screamed at her. How dare she steal from my son while she's staying under my roof? I honestly don't remember the last time I've been this upset. I asked my wife to go get her a few nights at a hotel, but she's gotta go. I just can't have her here. Am I the a-hole for kicking her out knowing she'll be homeless in a few days? We fed her, drove her, and just were very supportive of her while she was here. Part of me feels super guilty. I know screaming is not an effective way to communicate, and maybe I shouldn't have made such a quick decision. This happened to me. The child seeing that you stood up for them will mean everything to them. I got my very first job and had my mom come to my room to watch me put my first paycheck in my piggy bank because I was so proud. Later that night, I told my mom I wanted to take her to dinner and pay for it to celebrate. I can't even describe how upset I was to find that my piggy bank was empty. I even grabbed a flashlight thinking it got lodged somewhere in the bank. Nope, my stepfather had stolen the money for weed, and my mom confronted him at his friend's house where he was buying the stuff and got the money back. For real, my sister stole probably close to $2,000 from me when we both lived at home, and my dad would always say I must have lost it, or that I spent it and forgot. You know how you do when you come home at midnight from babysitting, but when you wake up all that's left is $5? You must have been wrong about how much you had. Anyway, I don't talk to my dad. My mother used to encourage my older sister to take my pay when I was 15 years old, washing dishes in a restaurant to pay for my own toiletries and clothes, because my mother certainly wasn't going to buy me anything. It's horrible having bullies as your only family. Thieves steal, and will steal again. I 1000% concur with the poster below. Put a credit hold on all your accounts, change your credit and debit card numbers, change all your passwords as well on the computer. Heck, even change your Netflix and other accounts. If she would steal from a 9-year-old, she will steal from you and your wife without any hesitation. Once she's gone, change all the locks on your house. We want to love family and give them the benefit of the doubt, but she's proven she isn't to be trusted. Protect your wife and son, your family. You did not overreact in my opinion, and it wasn't a quick decision. It was a firm and resolute decision based on your morals and your determination to protect your family. Your sister has shown she has no respect for you or your family and zero gratitude for what you try to do for her, which means she'll take more from you and harm you again if given the opportunity, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Very concerned she is using substances or has another vice. People don't steal like this when they aren't desperate. Money for a bus doesn't require stealing. I mean, she's working 30 hours a week without paying anything at their house. Let's assume that she's earning the absolute bare minimum I've seen any job these days, $10. That's still about $1,000 after taxes per month. She isn't paying a car or car insurance since they said they were driving her around. So she likely only has a phone bill. So where is the other $920-ish going every month? She likely has an addiction to some drug that the family isn't aware of, or actively ignoring because they don't want to admit it. Without solving the underlying drug issue, she will never be able to obtain permanent housing, or keep up with rent payments if she does. Kick her butt out. She doesn't need your help anymore. She needs rehab, and if she won't go to rehab, her own choices will determine her life, and she has no one else to blame. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to give my wealthier sister the lion's share of the inheritance? Yesterday, my parents had me 31 male, my 2 brothers 32 and 34, and my sister 41 down to discuss their will. My parents informed us that they want to split it 5 ways. My sister gets 2/5, while the 3 of us brothers get 1/5 each. Their reasoning is that my sister sacrificed her childhood for our family, so it's only fair she gets compensated. In our childhood, my father's business partners screwed him over, so there was a period where we were broke and in debt. My parents had to work multiple jobs to keep us afloat, and my sister babysat us while our parents worked. All she had to do was feed us and keep an eye on us. We were pretty calm kids, so all we did was play games and do our homework. It probably wasn't thrilling, but not exactly a tremendous hardship. I complained to my parents, along with my brothers, that it's insane they want to give my sister 2/5 of the inheritance over that, especially since she's financially the best off out of all of us. She doesn't have any kids, and a dual income with her partner. My parents said they're disappointed in us, and said we need to reflect on ourselves. My sister didn't say anything while my parents spoke, but texted us afterwards that she had zero intention of taking 2/5, but we were a-holes. Am I the a-hole for feeling like this split is unfair? Info. Are you and your brothers struggling financially, or just not as comfortable as your sister? You've talked about her advantages, basically being a dink. Do you and your brothers have financial disadvantages that are preventing you from being more successful? My brothers and I all have children that eat up a lot of our income. My wife and I both work, but the general costs of living means we're just staying afloat. My sister also benefited from having hardship/academic scholarships, so had minimal student debt. We didn't have the same access to scholarships, as our parents' income had improved by the time we went to college. How much did your parents help you and your brothers with college? I'm assuming they didn't have the means to help your sister. As the 3 of us were in college roughly the same time, our parents could only afford to pay for day-to-day costs like rent, but couldn't help pay for our degrees. Did they do the same for your sister? If not, then that's even more reason why their decision makes sense. The fact that she qualified for hardship/academic scholarships is irrelevant. How isn't it relevant? She saved way more money than us through those scholarships. She was able to go to a more prestigious college than us for pennies because of those scholarships and gave her a huge leg up in her work. We couldn't even consider going to out-of-state colleges because of loans. Yordi Aol, even if she just stayed at home while you were there, she didn't have teenage freedom, and she made sacrifices and took on responsibilities. It doesn't matter how affluent she is now. Your parents are trying to pay her back for what they couldn't pay her then. Yordi Aol, your failure to make as much as her isn't your parents' problem. Plus, those years could be a major factor why she chose not to have kids or doesn't have kids yet. She already raised her siblings. Yordi Aol. Yordi Aol, not many parents are willing to acknowledge that they parentified a child. Your sister sacrificed her teenage years to help your parents take care of you. There may not have been any inheritance at all for you to quibble over, if not for her unpaid labor back then. To put a finer point on it, the sister didn't sacrifice her childhood. The parents stole her childhood. A child did not volunteer to watch her 3 brothers. How many years was the sister babysitting to make the parents feel guilty enough to leave her a whole extra share? How old was she when it started? And OP, don't for a minute downplay what your sister did. That alone makes you an ungrateful a-hole. I don't condone or excuse the parentification, but it was because of your sister that you had food on the table and your parents were able to get back on their feet. You want to reap the benefits of your parents' hard work and success without thought to how they got there. Maybe she would have also liked playing games too instead of watching you. Maybe she would have liked going out her friends and spending time with them instead of 3 little brothers. Maybe she had enough of watching children for a lifetime, and that's why she's child-free. Your entitled attitude is pretty gross.